crafty friends, it's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. This month for the Stamping Society tutorial, we are bringing you techniques with blending brushes. Mine have been branded with the colors that I use. So I am going to be using the Vine Design bundle. I feel like this one just, it's kind of been a sleeper. So it has some incredible dies. This is what sold me. We've got the rectangle, the oval, the circle, got some great stamps. So I really struggled with which project to share as my tutorial and which one to do as the blog hop. So stay tuned. You'll see which one's which. This is, I think, my favorite card. It was rather simple. There's no real blending other than the background. I mean, I just die cut these pieces out of Bumblebee cardstock, but I'm just thrilled with how it turned out. I left the inside blank, of course, because thinking of you could be for anything, but let me show you how I did this, if I can remember. So like I said, I am using Bumblebee, and I am going to tape this down. I've got some Scotch brand painter's washi tape. Is that what it's called? It's delicate surface, gentle removal washi painter's tape. So we just did a major house reno, and that included quite a bit of painting. And we have like 2 rolls of this. I'm just going to remove some of that stick because I don't want it to be super tacky. But when I saw this sitting on the table, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need that. I have recently run out of my purple tape and I wanted something gentle. So I'm just going to put a very little bit on the sides. I will be trimming this down a little bit. You want to start with a piece that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You don't need to go much bigger than that, but just make sure that you've got a little bit that you can trim off in the end. I tend to go with a 4 by 5 1/4 inch mat. So I'll have a little bit to take off here. So I've got this ready. I'm going to, I think I'll go this way, it doesn't really matter. And then we'll tape that on. Now I want to tell you the inspiration for this. I don't have to remove the stick from this one because this isn't touching the cardstock. So this can be as sticky as anything. But I want to show you where the inspiration came for this design. So this piece of DSP from the Fine Art Floral, it's got that on the back side, was the inspiration for this. I so wanted to use this and I'm like, well, that's not blending. So this is the inspiration, colors and all. So I'm going to take my yellow dedicated brush and I'm going to pick up some Bumblebee. And now, I mean, I'm on my grid paper because I don't want to make a mess, but let's grab the pad of grid paper to just rub some of that off. So in order to replicate this, I need to have dark spots and light spots. So I'm going to go heavy in some areas, light in others. And the way you accomplish that is just to apply more pressure in some areas versus others. Now we're going to lift that. We don't have to be gentle with this part. So see, you can see that. I do think. So now I'm going to come in again with my Bumblebee. And you could do this first if you want. And I'm just going to add Bumblebee all over the whole thing. I don't want any white showing, or very little. So in some areas, again, I'm going to go dark and some I'm going to go light. And if it's in an area where there's already a light blending, it might not obliterate it, but you're not going to see much of it. And that's okay, because you can see on my sample, there are areas where you can't see the pattern at all. Notice I always start on my grid paper. I don't want to get a really harsh line or spot on my project. Now, the thing that I found made quite a difference was to take my Bumblebee Stampin' Write marker and add some spritz. So you just flick the end into the cap. Okay, so there we go. Now, if I want it to be a little more intense, I can take my ink refill or I can just scribble a little bit onto a clear block. Now I will take a water painter. So I'm using the fine tip. There's 3 in the pack. Just going to add a little bit of water, and then I'm just going to add that. Now, if you find that it's not enough ink, you can put your water painter into your ink pad, add some more. You can add that drop of re-inker if you want. I just found that this gave me differing sizes. I don't want to get it on here, so let's get that out of the way. It's always advisable to have a full sheet of grid paper or some paper towel underneath so that you don't get spritz all over your workstation. And I do want some larger spots. That's the whole point, is so that it doesn't all look like the marker did it. There we go, nice and distressed. Just take a baby wipe or some wet paper towel, clean off your block, clean off your marker, clean off your workstation. Spritzing is not a clean task. Okay, so we'll set that aside for a few moments and we will die cut the Bumblebee cardstock. So to accomplish the look that I have here, I used one of the stitched rectangles, and I believe it's the second one in here. It is. I don't want to cover up that whole spot. So we've got that, and then we've got the rectangle from the Vine Design. So we'll die cut each of those in Bumblebee cardstock. If you're not planning on using a dark yellow like this, like Bumblebee, you can just clean that with your baby wipe as well. When I use a darker color, because each of my brushes is basically dedicated to a color of the rainbow. So I have red, I have orange, I have yellow, I have green, blue, purple, and then I have one for white and one for neutrals. So if I use a dark color, like Bumblebee is a dark yellow, I will go and give it a rinse under the sink just to get rid of any pigment that's left. I look like I'm a little bit jaundiced. So with a Bumblebee 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch mat, we can get both pieces. So I'm just going to run those through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. So when this comes out, all the pieces are still in there. I only ran it through one way. I didn't come back the other way. So what I will do is take my take your pick die brush end, and over my garbage can, I'm just going to, or in my hand, I'm just going to get these all out. This is a lot easier to do when it's still in the die. Once it's come out, not so easy. And then with these pieces, I usually just use a lint roller and pick them up. But a super sweet friend of mine, I should have just left those ones in my hand, a super sweet friend sent me the cutest thing. I've just got to show you. So we'll get the bulk of these out. And look, not a one left in there. And then I'll just poke the rest of these through. And I find sometimes just by kind of wiggling it back and forth, you'll get those extra pieces out. And then whatever's left, just use your die cut, your brush. Okay, so I'm going to specifically leave a couple of pieces there. And I just have to show you because this is the cutest thing I think I've ever seen. So it is a little ladybug tabletop vacuum cleaner. So push that on. How stinking cute is that? Isn't that adorable? Okay, so we'll pop this out. We need a little scrap of basic white. So I've got a messy little scrap here. Now, I highly recommend when you're doing this that you stamp first and then die cut. So we're going to stamp our border, and then we're going to do, maybe let's do with sympathy on this one. There are so many great long sentiments in this set. But I really do, whoa, I almost put my block in the ink without the stamp. I really do think this has been underrated. I've seen some great projects using this set for Easter cards. So if you use the oval die, it's just like a bonus tip. If you use the oval die, it makes a great little Easter egg. So cute. Okay, so try and get it on there straight. It's not the end of the world. You can always adjust if need be, and then you're just going to stamp it in there. So pretty. I will tell you, I'll fully admit this wasn't first on my list. It took some time before I got it, but oh, just loving it. So we've got our die for that nice long banner, and I'm just going to reuse a little piece of the washi tape that I had from my blending, but I want to make sure that I don't smudge any ink that's on there. I'm being lazy. Lazy girl stamping. Okay, so there is our sentiment. It can be tricky to get this one to stay put, so you might end up with a little bit of extra white on one side versus another. I would suggest once you get it where you want, use tape maybe on both sides, because it can be a little bit of a pain. So you can use adhesive sheet on here, but I find just using some liquid glue on my silicone craft sheet. Take a sponge dauber, and this should be dedicated to adhesive, and then just spread it on the back. You can also use a spray adhesive. I really wish Stampin' Up! Would come out with a spray adhesive. I just use E6000 when I'm trying to do a job like that where spray adhesive is the way to go. Now, the one thing I will warn you about is you don't want this to move, because you don't want adhesive getting on the front side of this. And you do have to work fairly quickly because it's going to dry on you. So where is my background? Still taped on there. So I am going to just place this down quickly. I'll do my cutting afterwards. Get that on there. And I like to just run over it with a block. It drives me crazy having sticky hands, so I'll let the adhesive get on my block. And if there's any parts that are kind of sticking up, I'll push with the block. So let's use the 2 of these on there and just let it sit while I clean my craft sheet. And a baby wipe will take most of this off, but I do run it under the sink just to get any additional off. So these tools will be making a trip to the sink when I'm done, as will the mask, because I want to get any Bumblebee that's on the front of that off. So I just kind of have a little pile that's off to the side. That's all coordinating. Look at that color. All Stampin' Up! I don't know, is it brown? Is it green? I don't know. But I've got my little cleanup pile. And I should mention, I'm using a top folding card, but I'm using it sideways so that it opens lengthwise. Okay, so we've got our top folding card. These should be ready. And remember, there's so little tape on there that I can just kind of pull it away from there. We'll give it a trim because you can see how much blending we did in there. So I like to use the little guillotine trimmer. This might be a little bit smaller than 4 inches this time. Nope. So basically all I'm looking to do is get rid of that little bit of white. So I'm going to take this down to 4 inches. Now the only downside is that I can't see where 5.5 or 5 1/4 is. So usually what I do is I mimic what I've taken off on those other sides. Let's take a little bit more off that bottom. Okie dokie. Probably doesn't look like much yet. I'm going to use my Stampin' Seal. And then with the rectangle, I'm going to put some Stampin' Dimensionals on here just to pop it up. If you don't pop it up, it kind of looks like it's part of the die, which is cool, but I wanted that little bit of dimension right in the center, top to bottom, left to right. I'll add just a little bit of seal to the back of my sentiment strip. You could use liquid glue if you want here. We're going to center that as well. Hopefully that's straight. I'm not working right above where I normally would be. I'm going to add some gold glitter enamel dots. And I have used the medium ones as the centers of these flowers at the top and bottom. If you can't get it up with the, take your, like the pointy end, like the paper piercer part, then use your putty end. I find it's best to kind of get in under there and then pick it up with the putty. Okay, so I'm using the medium ones there. And I don't have many left. I'm glad to see that these are carrying over. So I'm going to also put the medium ones on these two little blooms. You don't have to put as much thought into it as I have. I just, that's how I am. So I'm not using any of the big ones. They felt a little bit too big. So I'm just finding the middle of the flowers, and then for the other ones, I'm just going to use the small ones. So anywhere that you see the center of a flower, just pop it on. Doesn't that just add a little something something? And then our final step is to add a little bit of ribbon. And I almost cried when I saw that this ribbon is retiring, the Forever Greenery. I don't even know if I have enough. Although I'm loving the symmetry on this, I don't want to wreck that. But if you do have some gold trim, it really does look beautiful like that. I'm going to see if I can mess around with this and get it on there, but I hope that you enjoyed that. It looks maybe a little more buttery in this version, and I think that's probably because I had a different yellow on there. This one definitely looks kind of crushed curry-ish. So play around. This would work with any color combination. I hope you enjoyed it, and I thank you so much for your support of the Stamping Society, and we'll see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye.